If you're just joining us, my name is Brent Givens. I'm the principal here at Churchill Middle School. And along with us tonight are two folks that we work with frequently. We have Mrs. Lindsay Lewis. Lindsay, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Lewis, and I'm one of the IB coordinators here at Churchill Middle School, and I'm also one of our 6th grade English and history teachers.
And then we have Mr. Christopher Wright, and I'll let Chris introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Christopher Wright. I'm the teacher on special assignment for the Advanced and Accelerated Programs Office.
And we are here tonight to hopefully answer any questions that families who are interested in Winston Churchill and the IB program might have. Mrs. Lewis and I recorded a kind of introductory video overview of Churchill and our IB program with the goal of hopefully answering some questions and providing some information that you might have about our school and our program and how the IB program is maybe different than a traditional middle school program, some of the focus areas that we have, and going over the difference between the diplomat program and our ambassador program. And then Chris is here as an opportunity to kind of get more information about the open enrollment process, the application process. And then Mrs. Lewis is one of our IB coordinators and also a 6th grade core teacher, as she said, and she has a lot of insight into some of those questions that parents have about what's the workload like at an IB school, which is one of the top questions that we get. I should also mention that we have another IB coordinator, Mrs. Kristen Manchester. She could not be with us tonight, but Lindsay and Kristen work as a team and really help focus on the IB program. Mrs. Lewis works a lot with our community service program. She's our communications director. She really takes a lot of information, Q&A. She works with some of our academic policies. And then Ms. Manchester is deeply involved with the IB organization, helps provide and schedule a lot of the training sessions that all of our staff get. So there's just a lot of collaborative work that goes on at Churchill. And then besides myself, we have two vice principals at Churchill, Mrs. Cami Sliwa and Mr. Amadi Eme. And again, as a team, we meet often and we work with our teachers to ensure that we're giving high quality education and that we're kind of all on the same path. We are hoping that if you have questions tonight, that you can type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, depending on what type of device you're on. And we will go ahead and kind of check on those questions and provide answers as they go. So again, thank you very much for joining us as we're kind of doing this not the normal way, obviously. We've said this a million times. Normally we'd be in our multi-purpose room on campus. It's typically standing room only, and we would be kind of going over our program details and then taking questions and having other resources available for you to talk and look around campus as well. We do have a student visitation day that is normally planned as well. And in this environment, we have created a virtual campus visitation day, and Mrs. Lewis is putting the finishing touches on that experience, which includes some tour guides, which are previous students that have been through Churchill's IB program and kind of show you around campus and answer questions as well. So let's go ahead and start answering some of these questions. I'm going to go ahead and read from the top. Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Wright, if it feels like it's in your wheelhouse, go ahead and jump in. So the first question is how does the teachers help a student cope with work pressure generally? So again, how do teachers help students cope with the work pressure?
Well, the first thing I would say is we are constantly using our planners to try to keep our kids organized. That's a big part. I've even been using our planners during distance learning, which kind of feels a little silly since we're not on campus, but I think organization is definitely one of the ways that we try to help our students. Another way is we teach a lot of organizational skills and a lot of study skills, because we understand that if we are not organized, there's going to be a lot of extra stress creeping up when we don't have things when they're due. Working on ways to not procrastinate. That's another big thing that causes a lot of stress in middle school. And sometimes students have to learn the hard way, but then typically we get them back on track. And then the biggest thing is we talk a lot with our students about they need to reach out to us. Middle school is very different than elementary school, where one teacher has maybe 30 students. Our teachers average 100 to 170, 165 students per teacher. So the biggest thing that we try to put out to our students is to please ask us if you are needing help, because sometimes everything seems fine on the surface, but making sure that they know how to communicate with us, knowing how to reach our email is something that we teach right in the very first week of school. That way they can come and talk to us, whether it's distance learning like right now, or even in person. Sometimes it's easier to reach out to your teacher on an email. Feels a little bit safer that way sometimes. I hope that kind of answered the question. We do also have a great counseling team on our campus. We have Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Link, two of our counselors that we have at Churchill. And if we feel like there is an issue with a student having extreme anxiety over workload or school or whatever it may be, we also work as that bridge. We, meaning the teachers, would work as that bridge to help the student connect with one of our counselors on campus.
Thank you, Mrs. Lewis. So another question we have here is, what kind of commitment is needed from parents to ensure that we can meet the demands of the program? And I would say that, one of the things that we focus on a lot is collaboration and working in teams. And we know that especially in the middle school years, there's a lot of social and emotional growth that happens. And it's really important that parents have a lot of involvement, as much involvement as possible with their students. It's easy to leave an elementary school where there's a tremendous amount of parent involvement, and then just kind of have that notion that my kids can get themselves dressed, they can feed themselves, and they can get themselves to school, or we can drop them off at the school and they're a lot more self-sufficient. But we know that middle schoolers are really easily distracted. We're seeing that to the extreme right now in our distance learning environment, where everybody's looking at computer screens and has multiple tabs open, and you're supposed to be in Google Classroom or in one of the online learning platforms, and YouTube is right there, or Roblox is right there, or some other distraction. So parents really need to have conversations on a daily basis with students about what's happening in their classroom, what did you learn, and not accepting the one-word answer, which is, yeah, school was okay, it's good. Probe more deeply. Also, as Mrs. Lewis talked about, teaching students how to use the email system right off the bat, and also how to check Q. Students at the middle school level and practically for the rest of their career in San Juan will be living in the student database system, which we call Q. There's a student portal and there's a parent portal. And that's something that I know it happens in my house. I have 3 kids. I have a 6th grader, I have a freshman in high school and a senior in high school. And my wife and I are on the parent portal on a regular basis, asking our kids what happened with this assignment. It shows that it's missing, or it shows that there was a lower grade than we expected. And it's just kind of like checking your bank account, right? You don't want to find out that something happened down the line and you didn't know about it. So we tell our students, check frequently, have conversations with your teachers. Parents, we say the same thing, and have those conversations at home. Ms. Lewis, what else?
Yeah, I would say a good rule of thumb is checking parent portal at least once a week. That will be a good way to make sure you're keeping up on things, because teachers are going to be posting assignments on all different days of the week. So if you kind of set a goal that every Friday, I'm going to make sure I check parent portal, or every Monday. And we also encourage our students to be checking at least once a week to make sure that they're seeing what they're actually earning on different assignments and just keeping up on things. And that's different from elementary school, where students typically only get their grades at that trimester, and that's it, or progress notice in trimester. In middle school, our grades are very much reliant on the things they're turning in or not turning in. So if they start having missed assignments, they can make those items up in pretty much any class, especially if you work with the teacher. But if you wait until progress notice to find out that, oh gosh, I'm missing all these assignments, it might be challenging. The other parent participation that's a little bit unique at our school is because we do have a community service requirement. It has been put on hold due to distance learning this year, but we are planning on having it back up and running next year. So just be ready that your student in both 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will have a community service requirement. And so parents have that extra requirement of making sure they either get to and from their location if they're choosing to volunteer off campus, or just picking them up later after school, or bringing them to campus on a Saturday when they have a service opportunity on campus. And yes, I'm in my daughter's playroom and that's happening right now. Everly, bring up the cat, bring up the cat.
All right, so hopefully that answered the question about parent involvement. It's very important at the middle school level. These kids still need a lot of involvement. We don't typically have parents swarming on our campus because we want to promote independence and we want to promote self-advocacy, but we certainly need parent involvement. Violet Nye is the president of our parent-teacher organization, our PTO. And we have monthly meetings. I am at all of those meetings. Mrs. Lewis is at all of those meetings. Mrs. Manchester is at those meetings. And we rely on our parents to do a lot of work around our campus. It's oftentimes behind the scenes. It involves, funding a lot of the programs that happen on campus, including training for the IB program, but also for school events like dances and other special events. So we have a great parent group. I can't speak highly enough about them. And so parents often ask us, how can they help support their kid, not only academically, but also with the donation of time at some of these events. So next question, we have somebody that was asking about whether we have a computer science program. So we do have a technology digital education teacher, Mr. Billingsley. We have one section of video production, which they produce BTV, which is our video announcements. That is a great way to kind of promote school spirit, school events, other happenings, and also some just kind of public service announcements and fun activities that kids like to get involved in. We have a weather section, we have a sports section, we have tips and tricks and things that you would see on YouTube, and then we do have a technology course. However, it's not often that our diplomat students are going to be able to plug into that because of the foreign language and the visual and performing arts requirements. So Ms. Lewis, is that your take on it as well?
Yeah, definitely, because our students that are in the diplomat program, which is what you're here learning more about, they have to take a world language every year, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as well as the VAPA requirement for IB, which will possibly not put you into that particular elective. But the BTV class in 8th grade is something that our diplomat students would be a part of, definitely. So that's probably your best option for that.
And that's because the BTV program is really considered part of the visual and performing arts requirement. And again, we're following the guidelines for the International Baccalaureate Organization, the IBO, which kind of guides the kinds of programs that we offer. Next question there, how are the IB students integrated with other students at Churchill? So this has been a bit of a confusion in the past, and I think it's a good idea to kind of clear it up. We are a 100% whole school IB program. That means that all of our teachers are receiving training in the IB philosophy, the IB unit planning, lesson planning, the strategies and skills that come from IB. So all of our teachers, even our new teachers, will get that if they haven't yet, but we have ongoing training throughout the year. Mrs. Manchester, our other IB coordinator, is actually a certified IB trainer. And so we have that luxury. Actually, Miss Holdaway, another teacher on campus, is also certified in IB training. So we have a couple folks that have that specific focus. But within our school, which again is a whole IB school, we have two programs. We have the diplomat program, which is the open enrollment application program, and we have the ambassador program. So Chris Wright can kind of speak to the diplomat program and the criteria that's required in order to get into that door per se. And then we have the ambassador program, which is basically the school of residency. Where you live, your address is what determines whether you're in the ambassador program. So you can certainly live within the boundaries of Churchill, and apply for the diplomat program. But the diplomat program is through the application process via open enrollment. So the specific answer to the question about how they're integrated is that we have math classes, for example, that are simply by ability level. Any student at our school can take a higher level math class if they have the academic rigor, the grit to do that, and the data shows that they'll be successful. Our students are sharing PE classes, our students are sharing elective classes in many cases, but there are some program specific classes. So for instance, Mrs. Lewis has a diplomat level class that would not include students that are in the ambassador program.
Yeah, so our English classes would be strictly diplomat, our history classes strictly diplomat, our science would also be strictly world language. Primarily diplomat students will be taking the world language classes, but there would be some integration there too. So really it would be English, history, and science that would be a full diplomat section. And then the other classes, again, it depends on your elective choices and your math level.
Right. The next question, if virtual learning continues next year, what will that look like in terms of instruction and workload? So Mrs. Lewis and I talked about this today. I don't have any expectation that this is going to continue for the 21-22 school year. I think, you know, we have a target date that the district and the board have set for January 5th. We're crossing our fingers and assuming that that's going to happen. That's, you know, what that looks like specifically. The actual model is being decided right now in a partnership with our teachers union and the school district administration and the school board, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that the district would like to see that promoted and advertised to families ahead of the Thanksgiving break. But yeah, we had to pivot and make some changes in the way that we deliver our curriculum in distance learning. So we're noticing that clearly the collaboration is different. The ability for teachers to interact with students is different. So I guess I can't really answer that right now. I would say that different students have responded differently to the workload. Some love distance learning and some are really, really struggling with it.
Yeah, and I know that, so for those of us that are coming from elementary school, you might not be familiar, we're on a block schedule right now in middle school during distance learning. So if for whatever reason this had to continue, we would most likely continue with a block schedule where students see 3 of their teachers a day for an hour and a half each teacher. That's the amount of time that's allotted for each course. And then I know many of us are trying to pack as much work all within that hour and a half block. So my students do not have work for me outside of my class time unless it's a project that maybe they weren't using that class time as wisely as they could have, which is always the story, even when we're in person learning. So I would say that the workload definitely, I don't think has increased during distance learning. If anything, I think teachers are being more mindful of the situation and really trying to make sure everything's extremely meaningful that we're assigning. But I agree, I don't foresee us in this model exactly how it is right now for next year.
Yeah, that's certainly our hope. All right, this next one I believe is going to be Chris. I've selected the time for my kid to take placement exam. Will you send us a confirmation and details about the exam?
Okay. As far as confirmation, you should have already received confirmation from the office. If you recently applied, you will receive confirmation within 2 to 5 days. We were hoping in the beginning that we would be able to do some in-person testing, but all of our November and December testing will be done remotely. All the directions and information for that will go out about a week before, maybe 2 weeks if we have it ready by then. We're still hashing out the specifics. What I can tell you is that you will be testing during your time that you chose. Each test will have a proctor in a small group. We will be asking that you have a secure internet connection, you have a Chromebook laptop or a desktop computer that allows sound. You do need to have your sound on. We are going to need you to have your camera on. Your child will sign into a Zoom. So that'll be for security purposes so that we can make sure that the child is taking the test, that they're not being helped. And then they'll sign into the test and there'll be 2 separate tests, and all that information and how to sign on and your login information will all be sent to you, like I said, about a week before.
Perfect. And then Chris, again, if people have questions and they want to email you directly, they can do that by emailing accelerated@sanjuan.edu. Is that correct?
Correct. Or they can email me specifically. It's christopher.wright@sanjuan.edu.
Perfect. So 2 ways. One will get you to the office and the support staff in your office, and one will go directly to you. But you can certainly send that confirmation request to double check your status to directly to christopher.wright, WRIGHT @sanjuan.edu. We had another question about what does accelerated mean in this context? Faster paced, greater breadth of curriculum, work done more independently, heavier workload. I would say yes, yes, and yes. I would say that there is an expectation as well about definitely the working more independently. Mrs. Lewis, why don't you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would want to clear up, we are not going to be teaching a grade ahead. I know sometimes in Rapid Learner, our students come in and they get a little confused by certain things like that. So just to clarify, I teach 6th grade history. I teach 6th grade history to both my diplomat and my ambassador classes. So these standards are not different and the content is not different. The only place that would be different is if you're on an accelerated math pathway, then you might be taking courses that are a grade or 2 ahead of where you're at. But for our typical diplomat classes, it's definitely going to mean more intense thinking, more critical thinking, inquiry-based learning. It's going to have larger stepped process, a bigger project, a lot more independence. Things are still going to be guided and obviously age appropriate, but there's going to be a lot more challenge. I know that we have that question a lot with like workload and homework load. I will say that our 8th grade year is typically when students find that they have the most homework. And we also look at our student schedules in 8th grade, and many of them are taking multiple high school level courses. When you are taking multiple high school level courses as an 8th grader, that is going to mean a greater workload, a greater homework load. Typically our students in 6th and 7th grade aren't necessarily going to feel so overwhelmed with massive amounts of homework if they're in our accelerated diplomat program, but it's the types of learning and the types of independence would be probably the biggest difference that you would see.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we really, focus on the learning profiles that are kind of laid out in the IB program. And so collaboration and, working in teams and asking good questions and being a strong communicator and being a critical thinker.
And being balanced. Balance is one of our learner profile traits.
Yeah,
so I know that our school has this reputation of just hours and hours and hours of homework, but I will say that that is just not really the case anymore. I think it was the case in the past. I do know that, our 8th grade students, especially depending on their high school level courses, will feel extra homework once they get to their 3rd year of the program. And our 8th grade teachers are also preparing them for high school. So that's kind of the best I can say for that. It really depends on your student and their courses.
Yeah, and that's the really big thing, is that every child is different and every child tackles a set of projects or workload in a different manner. So next question is going to be, how do you connect the students across the different programs so as not to create a feeling among students and teachers that IB diplomat students are better than others? I found this to be a real issue when our son was in the program. I would say that we are really heavily, me personally, I'm heavily focused on equity. So what I can say in response to that question is I am actively pursuing the equity conversation at our school. We want to have students that feel like they are together on our campus as Churchill Bulldogs, not the us versus them. But the reality is right now we have 2 programs. One is a open enrollment program, and it has a different level of criteria. And so we are working hard to offer more opportunities for students so that it doesn't matter which program that you're in, but the opportunity exists based on the student motivation. So I am in conversations on a regular ongoing basis now with our district leadership and with our school leadership. Mrs. Lewis can attest that since I've been at Churchill for the last 2 years, that has been a common theme, and that it is a work in progress that we're hoping to continue to kind of chip away at, so that we, again, have a real unified feel on our campus.
Well, and another big shift that happened, I mean, I can speak for the last 8 years at Churchill. That's how long I've been on campus. And I know that when I first came, there was a huge divide. So that's about the 7 years ago that you're referring to. One thing that has come into place since I first came to Churchill was the homeroom curriculum and the homeroom class. And we found that that was such a huge way to connect all of our students, to get them more connected. We are finding more and more in the last few years that students, because they would have homeroom with another student, they would have PE with another student, possibly math with another student, they didn't even realize that they were in different programs because they had half their classes with that student. So I think that it was definitely a concern on our campus, and I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I think that our homeroom curriculum has built a lot of great community between the classes and between our two programs, and so we have seen major growth in that direction. Many students aren't even aware, well, this year especially, our sixth graders, they have no idea that there's different programs on campus, and so you know, it's just the way you kind of present things too. And we do have an honors pathway, but that's also true for our other middle schools in the district. So we just have a little bit of a different way that you get into our particular honors path.
And two, Lindsay, you know, the IB program at Churchill started back in 1999. So that's over a 20-year history of building a program, and certainly there's been different leadership and administration and teaching staff and district level leadership. So it's a passion of mine to make sure that we continue to work very hard. And again, we're making good steps in that, and it's a conversation that our staff are very involved in. So Chris, this next question looks like it's you. If you want to go ahead and talk about the open enrollment process, et cetera.
Yes. Okay, so it says, do we have to participate in open enrollment if our child is accepted? Open enrollment and applying for the diplomat program think of them as two separate things. I'm going to give an example for, say, you're going into sixth grade, and if you don't get into the Churchill program, then Arden might be your first choice, your next choice. So we would encourage everybody to open enroll. Especially so you're in district kids, to open enroll in your second choice if you don't get into Churchill. If you end up qualifying for the diplomat program, then so after stage 2, and the testing is in November 16th through December 4th, if you pass that test and you meet the qualification, we will then send you a commitment letter. Those commitment letters will go out in mid-December. If you turn that commitment letter in by the due date, which is January 22nd, you're saying that you are committing to the program if we have a spot for you. Then you're going to go ahead and continue your open enrollment. So if we have a spot for you, that commitment letter guarantees you that spot in the diplomat program. If we can't put you in there, say you don't qualify, or you're on a wait list, or you had to do a portfolio and it didn't get approved, then your open enrollment will go through. That's your backup plan. So the unfortunate thing is that we don't tell you if you're in until after open enrollment is finished. So make sure you follow through with the open enrollment just in case. But just so you know, open enrollment will not interfere with your ability to get into the diplomat program. It's actually recommended that you do both.
Yeah. The next part of that question, Chris, was what does the test for IB consist of, and is it online, in person, et cetera?
Okay, so I did answer part of that already. It's going to be online. It's going to be remote. You sign up for a time. You will sign into a Zoom, and you'll sign into the test. All that information will be emailed to you about a week before. It is a test on the current grade level standards for reading and math. It's a test that mirrors the CASP, so it's very similar in both content and question types. Let's see.
And then they're asking about
Yeah.
commitment letters and portfolios.
Yeah. So commitment letters go out, like I said. So right now we're still qualifying people through stage 1. So if you apply, we are then first looking to make sure that you met grade level standards by the iReady or the MAP, which is 70th percentile in both reading and math. If for some reason you did not meet those standards, you do have the ability to request a multiple measures review, in which case we will then go look at your progress report, your report card, any of your current classwork to see that you're keeping up and you're meeting all your grade level and classroom expectations. So what we're trying to look for is, say you didn't meet the math requirement for stage 1, is your math work showing that in general you really are, in which case we can then override that and let you test. All the testing happens in November. That's stage 2. So November to December 4th is our stage 2 testing. That is the test that will actually qualify you for the program or not. If you are 85% or higher in both reading and math, you will receive a commitment letter and you will receive a letter that says you are qualified, okay? That doesn't mean you're in yet. We still have to see how many people get qualified. It used to be considered a tier letter, but it'll be just a qualifying letter. It's the same thing. If you are 70th percentile in both or higher, or 99 in one and 71 in the other, you will receive a portfolio letter. And that will give you the opportunity to do a portfolio and to try to get qualified through your schoolwork and your current achievement. And that will consist of an essay and 3 pieces of work that they'll turn in by January 22nd as well, along with their commitment letter. And those will be graded by 3 IB teachers.
I think that was
Got it.
it for that one. Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. We've got quite a few questions and I want to get through them. So the next one was just about a specific student that's in a rapid learner program. How is the selection criteria for the Churchill IB 6th grade different, or how has it changed from last year? So maybe just a quick note about the way we had to pivot.
So the biggest difference is that normally we just take the CAS scores that are existing and the MAP scores that they take, and we qualify kids and we just send letters say you're qualified. Unfortunately, this year we didn't have the CAS, so we can't draw from that. And some people took the MAP and some people took the iReady, and everybody took it from home. So we had to look for another way to test. And this is what we came up with, is a test that's very similar to the CAS, and that's how we ended up here.
Right. Next question. We spoke about it a little bit. What's the average amount of homework on a daily basis? Mrs. Lewis, it varies depending on the student.
Right? They want it more. I'm
I
going to
know.
say 30 minutes minimum, because our students should be reading 30 minutes a day, no matter who their English teacher is. And I mean, I'm going to say 2 hours should be like a maximum average homework. But again, there's all the asterisks. It depends on your grade level. It depends on how you work in class. It depends on if you take 45 minutes to pick a particular font for a project. I've had that happen.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so many factors. It's really hard to give a number, but I'm going to say that's my number, because I know you want one.
Right. Yeah. It's going to vary, but we do see students that get through their work very quickly. And we also see students that are just slow, and they've been slow for a long time. And what I mean by that is just they're very meticulous and careful, and they work at a very steady pace. You know, maybe are kind of a perfectionist and that kind of student. So we see a pretty wide range. Next question is, if students stay in the IB program to 8th grade, will they be transferred to the IB program in Mira Loma automatically?
If they want to be, if they want to continue their pathway in the IB, because if you're not familiar, we are the first 3 years of the middle years program, which is an IB program, and the last 2 years are at Mira Loma. That they are the only high school in our district that offers years 4 and 5. So if your student does participate in 3 years at Churchill and they attend Mira Loma, then yes, they will continue on their IB pathway, but it is not a requirement and it's not something that automatically happens. So if they have plans to go to a different high school, that you will still pick a high school just like you would any other student in San Juan.
And Chris, can you confirm, do they still, because we're changing an actual grade span, they need to open enroll again to Mira Loma if it's outside of their?
Yes, it depends on their circumstances, but yes, they would
Yeah.
have priority to continue though.
Yeah, so once you're enrolled in the IB program, diplomat program, the middle years program, which as Ms. Lewis said is the first 3 years of a 5-year program, you're in Churchill for those 3 years. It's not an annual thing, it's a one-time thing. But then again, jumping to a different grade span, which is the high school level, you would need to make sure that you go through that open enrollment process again, but it's you would stay in the IB program there. Next question, in terms of open seats for 6th grade, about how many typically are open for out-of-district students? Chris, did you want to speak to that?
Yes.
We have 165 seats for 6th grade.
Yeah, we have 165 total seats. A priority does go to our current students and our district residents. Once all those qualified students are placed, then we go to our out-of-district. There is no minimum or maximum number for out-of-district. It all depends on how many in-district and district residents get in. And usually in the past 4 years, not this year though, but the past 4 years, almost all of our out-of-district kids got in. This past year, none of them got in. And that was because we had a wait list, and that wait list still consisted of our in-district kids.
Yeah, it's different every year. Next question is about, does every student applying to Churchill have to go through the admission test? Are there any exemptions?
As far as the diplomat program, no, not for 6th or 7th grade. If you want to get in 6th and 7th grade, you do need to go through the application process. If you miss that process, there are no exceptions. And if you do not pass the stage 2 test, there are no exceptions.
Right. Next question is about class size. I think this person is referring to Mrs. Lewis talking about 170 students. How does this impact individual attention? So in our diplomat program, we have classes that range from 24 to classes that are up to the class maximum, which is 36. We find that in a class of 36, and Ms. Lewis, I don't know if you have any classes with 36 this year. Of course, it's a little bit of a different environment right now because we have some families that have chosen to go to the distance learning or the district learning or homeschool program. But 36 highly motivated, high achieving students typically can be, I don't know how you would say it, Mrs. Lewis. You can give your attention to them. You've had that experience. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I want to clarify is when you're coming from elementary school, which I did teach elementary school for several years, I had one class of about 30 to 34 students. And as soon as Johnny was kind of looking like he was slipping up a little bit, it was much easier for me to contact one of those 34 parents. The biggest thing I do want to remind you is when you move into middle school, any middle school you go to, this isn't just Churchill, your teachers are going to now have 165 students possible on their teaching case. So the biggest thing that we mentioned at the start of the call was, please make sure you're checking Parent Portal weekly. And as soon as you notice that Johnny is slipping up, you email the teacher. That's the biggest thing that's just gonna kind of help that bridge from elementary school to middle school. But yes, when we're in a classroom, when I'm teaching one of my class periods, I typically have between 22 and 32 students, depending on what time of the day. The way the math schedule works out will impact how big my class size is when I'm one-on-one with my students. But when you have even 34 honor students in one classroom, I never feel like I have an issue meeting their needs one-on-one ever. So I do not feel like the individual class size is too big at all. But again, we are not your child's only teacher. And so I just like to make sure we kind of get that transition into middle school because it is different than elementary.
Yeah, so again, we have a wide range of class sizes, but the maximum that teachers would have contacts with throughout the school day is 165 in the core academic classes. Now there's higher numbers that are allowed for PE courses and for the music programs as well. The next question is kind of more specific. An older child was in the diplomat program, did a lot of art in their core classes, which was they enjoyed that. A child entering the 6th grade year who doesn't enjoy drawing or calligraphy, will that be a problem? Concerned that they won't be successful at Churchill if drawing skills aren't great. I don't think that would be an issue.
No, and this feels so directed. I know that our 6th grade core team, we have our master's in arts integration. We do use a lot of arts in our teaching. So I feel like that question definitely is coming from those classrooms. There are always various ways to complete projects. And we spend a lot of time making sure students feel really good about their work. I've had so many students leave our classrooms and they say, wow, I never thought that I would have been able to do that. We use a ton of computer programs to help students out as well. So no, they will be successful even if they are not coming in absolutely loving the fine arts.
Right. So the next one is just about how do elective courses work in the diplomat program. So there's a traditional or a typical course path. Students are going to take an English and a history class. They're going to take a science class. They're going to take a math class, depending on their ability level for math. And then they're going to take a PE class. But the PE class, because we have a total of 7 content areas that we have to squeeze into a 6-period day, they're going to select a visual and performing art. And then they're going to spend a quarter in that, and then they're going to go for a quarter in PE, and then they'll go back to that visual or performing art elective. And then, so it's a quarter on, quarter off program at Churchill. And that's so that we can also give them a foreign language. So as a 6th grader, for example, there is a world language wheel. They would be exposed in a trimester style format to Spanish, French, and Mandarin. And that gives them kind of an ability to find a language that they might have a preference for. And then as a 7th grader and an 8th grader, they would need to select a language and stay with that language for both their 7th and 8th grade year so that they could move on to the high school and have those prerequisites taken care of. I will say as an asterisk that we don't have enough seats in all of those languages to accommodate every child's first request. So sometimes, you know, even though they get exposed to Spanish and French and Mandarin, they may say, I want Mandarin as my first choice. And based on some of their other needs, we might not be able to offer that. So again, there's not a seat for every single student. If all 165 of our 6th graders told us that they wanted French, we would not be able to accommodate that because we have French 1 and we have French 2, and we still have the 6th grade for exploration classes. So we try our best to give students their choices, but they also have to have a 2nd or sometimes a 3rd as an alternate. So again, that's a little bit about the electives. Again, a world language and a visual or performing art. And then depending on your grade level, there's other opportunities like leadership class, for example, or BTV like we talked about as well. Question about the community. What's the community like with so many students coming from various areas? I think it's amazing. We have a lot of diversity. We have a lot of different, just different students from different walks of life that are on our campus. And what's cool about it is there's often an ability to find somebody else that you can connect with that shares a common interest with you. And we do have kind of clusters of students coming from similar areas that carpool together. So oftentimes they either know each other from a rapid learner program in the district, or they know each other from a Montessori program in the district,
or they don't
just
know each other at all, and
yeah.
they get to know each other. And I know it's really scary when you're one of the families coming from an elementary school that we don't have a ton of students coming from, but I can only speak to the connections I've had with my students. I had a young man last year who was just so upset the first couple of weeks and was just having such a hard time transitioning, and I just kept saying, give it some time, give it some time. And he did, and he was fine and never had any other issues. So they really do come in from so many different schools. I mean, gosh, off the top of my head, we probably represent at least 25 different elementary schools. I think a common misconception is that we only feed from the rapid learner programs. That's just not true anymore. For a while it was. So if you are coming from a non-rapid learner school, please do not feel like you're going to be left out. And then I know Mr. Givens was talking about, I'm editing our tour video for next week, and I'm putting in a lot of footage from when we were on campus together. And I will just say that watching the video has made me so happy, and also very sad that our students are not on campus this year right now. But the community is definitely clear. The diversity is definitely clear. And it's just, I don't know, it's a pretty special place, and working on this video has made me realize that. So again, I think I do it,
but. Chris, this question might be for you. Are there specific documents that need to be submitted, and could you talk more about that? So I think we should start by saying most of the information is listed in pretty clear form on the San Juan website. Do you want to give that website out again?
Sure. www.sanjuan.edu/IB. That'll bring you to the Advanced and Accelerated pages, specifically the IB part. And everything you want to know is up there. Also, when you apply, you will receive emails from Ann Clayson, and she will let you know all of the documents that are needed. If you are an in-district, there are no documents that we need from you. We pull everything from online. If you're a district resident, we do need your residency established. There's 2 documents, like a renter's agreement or a mortgage and a utility. We need those by November 17th to establish your residency. If you do not get that in by November 17th, we will consider you an out-of-district student. The other thing that we need is for district residents and out-of-district students, we need a report card for a current progress report or a end of the year last year to show that you're at grade level for stage 1. And then by December 4th, we need your first trimester report card, and that is for ranking purposes if you qualify. And that should be about it. If there's anything else, Ms. Clayson will send you an email and ask for it.
Very specific question about, do we have a VEX robotics or any other kind of robotics clubs? Not right now, but we never know what kinds of clubs we're going to have. They're oftentimes student driven. If we have a group of students that want a club on campus, they just need to find a teacher advisor that is willing to sponsor that or be there for them. So we have different varieties of clubs, but we do have some very, very successful academic teams. Again, we've got nationally ranked Science Olympiad teams, Quiz Bowl, Science Bowl. Mrs. Lewis is the History Day Club advisor, and we've had a lot of success there. In fact, you guys were collecting awards last year and have already had meetings this year virtually.
Yeah. So, the robotics, we've had this question come up in the past. If you are on Science Olympiad, there is a robotics category there. However, we're always looking for if there's a need. I know like our math team is actually coached by someone who is not necessarily a teacher on campus. We have a teacher who works with the math team coach. So if there is a great desire for robotics, and if we don't necessarily have a teacher to kind of lead that, any leads or parent support on that is definitely welcome. It's not like we have this many teams and we can't have any more, but right now we don't have anything specific for just robotics.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. That would be really cool.
I know.
Do all of the IB students typically go to Mira Loma? I would say that we have a pretty diverse population that kind of spreads out. We certainly have a significant population that goes to Mira Loma that continues in the IB program, and then they move into the diploma program at Mira Loma, which is the last 2 years of the IB program, and that qualifies you to graduate with all of the IB kind of certificates.
Diploma.
Yeah, the IB diploma. So again, that's but we have students that go everywhere. I mean, we have students that go everywhere in the San Juan district and also to other private high schools in the area. So I actually just recently filled out a recommendation for St. Francis, Christian Brothers, Jesuit, lots of other schools that are all represented. So certainly we do have a large number that go to Mira Loma, but it's not the it's not for everybody. Do we have opportunities to have integration between virtual and physical learning in the future, specifically for students who are traveling? So that's kind of not a principal decision. That's a school district, school board decision, which we'll learn more about for this next semester. And then what the future holds, again, I think Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Wright and myself are all hoping that we get back to a traditional schedule where we're live on campus. But certainly COVID-19 has changed the landscape of education, and we know that the virtual tools that we're using may continue to be available in ways that we didn't think were possible. But I think coming back to school on campus is definitely the primary goal. So I can't say much more about that. What fraction of IB students are from out of district? Chris, you want to take that one?
It would vary year from year.
Yeah.
This year, the sixth graders, there are 0. In the past few years, most of them have gotten in. It just varies. Yeah. Depends on how many in-district kids get in.
Yeah, it's kind of like asking how long is the line at the movies going to be? Well, it depends on what time of day you go and what year it is and how popular. It's just, you never know until you kind of get all the applications. So next one is
hey, Mr. Gibbs, there was a second part. It talked about the admission test for out of district is in March, and are they admitted on the same standard as in-district students? So
it's the same test, same baseline to pass. They do have to have the 85%. There is no portfolio. There's no wiggle room. It's 85% in both. You cannot go below either. You are taking the same test, but you are taking it later. However, you are not competing with the in-district or the district residents because they do get in first, and no out-of-district kids get in until the in-district and district residents have been taken care of.
Next question, my student would be entering as a 7th grader, and I've heard there are very limited spaces available for joining 7th graders. Is that accurate? I would say yes, that's accurate. The seating for enrollment for 7th grade is limited. And I'll briefly explain that, Chris, if you don't mind. So we have 165 6th graders that are in the diplomat program, and they traditionally, the large majority of them roll up into the 7th grade. And so we add approximately a class worth of students to 7th grade, which is approximately what, 33, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So there is a limited number of seats that are available in the 7th grade compared to the number of students that get admitted in the 6th grade.
This is the first year in my recollection that we've had a wait list for in-district 7th graders. Almost always are 7th graders in district and district residents get in. So, but it's no guarantee.
Right. Students coming from Montessori school, will iReady assessments be sufficient to show at grade level for eligibility and for enrollment math placement?
iReady, yes. Yes. If it's a 70th percentile or higher, we'll consider that the same, yes.
Perfect. Next, are there any resources that students can use to prepare for math placement tests? We do not provide any. Our math department has a test that is kind of like a readiness test. It kind of shows them the skills and the math standards that they want to see our students have for proficiency. And so we do not hand out anything if that's what this question is kind of asking about. Again, we're just making sure that students have mastered all of the prerequisite skills needed to come into to the math programs that we offer. And so we offer the traditional Math 6, Math 7, Math 8 for incoming sixth graders. If they show a mastery of the skills at a high enough level, then they have an opportunity to take the Math 7 XL, which is 2 years of math, Math 7 and Math 8. We kind of discussed that in the video, so hopefully you had a chance to watch that, but there's no resources that we provide in advance. Next question, other than math, what other high school level courses would they be taking in 8th grade? They would be taking foreign language, yeah. So you would potentially be taking Mandarin 2, French 2, or Spanish 2, which would be the prerequisite for the higher level language classes at high school. Next question is, how many students are part of the diplomat program versus ambassador program? So it's about 60% are in the diplomat program, 40% are in the ambassador program. We have an enrollment right now of about 975. So if you round it up to 1,000, it's generally speaking around 600 diplomat students and about 400 ambassador students, generally speaking. Ms. Lewis, why don't you take over reading some of these?
Yeah, it says, just to confirm, it is okay to apply to the IB program and participate in the general open enrollment that starts on December 7th if Churchill and the other desired backup school are not home schools. Yes.
Yes.
You're going to apply for Churchill and open enroll for your second choice. Yes. All right. Are parents responsible for the transportation if the student needs to take high school classes? Our high school classes are all available on campus. So there would not be classes taken at Mariloma. You would be taking your high school level math courses on campus. We offer IM1 and IM2. That would be freshman and sophomore level math. And the same would go for world language. We offer, you know, each of the languages in year 1 and year 2, which would be taken in 7th and 8th grade, and they're all on campus. So there is no transportation and students are not taking classes at the high school.
Yeah, that just for historical sake, there were situations in the past. We used to offer a higher level math course, and then when that phased out, there were some students that were kind of in that track and needed to do that. But we have no more students that would need to take a high school course. Everything is offered on campus. No other transportation is needed.
All right, is it possible for a student admitted into the ambassador program to move into the diploma program after showing improved academic achievement? Now for 6th and 7th grade, all of our admissions is handled through the Advanced and Accelerated Programs Office with Mr. Wright. Like we said, this year, we still have a wait list for both 6th and 7th grade. So students that are on campus in our ambassador program are not moving within programs. And then our 8th grade year is the only year that there is a little bit of possible wiggle room because that doesn't come from the Accelerated Programs Office. If we have a seat or two become available in the 8th grade year and we're seeing increased academic achievement, there would be a possibility of movement. But again, the 8th grade seats are possibly 1 or 2 each year, and some years there's none at all. So does that seem to be?
Yeah, and in addition, Ms. Lewis, sometimes we can't offer the full range of classes in that diplomat program. So if a student is already taking an advanced level math course and we see that they would, and we have teachers that kind of call out that a student is accelerated and would be successful in that, it may be that they could take 1 or 2 courses if there were seats available, but it's not necessarily a label that would change for all of their courses. All right.
All right.
Can I go with the next one?
Yeah, so 165 spots for 6th grade, and then we add a new class in 7th grade. It's typically 33 kids. If we have extra drops, then there might be a couple more seats, but typically 33.
Yeah, Chris, do you know that number? The next one, how many students are signed up to take the test this November, December? I don't think that's not known.
quite a few. I don't have that number to share, and yeah.
I mean, we're not putting a cap on the number of students that can take that test.
We are not capping it, and
Yeah.
the number's growing every day.
So if we have a greater than 165 qualified in-district students, is the acceptance simply a function of force rank per the test?
It will be ranked, if you go online, www.sanjuan.edu/IB. We do have a ranking process there. It is their test scores for reading and test scores for math, along with their report card scores for reading and math, and that will determine the ranking. We'll go from the highest in district or district resident down the line until they are all there. And then anybody past 165 will get on the wait list. Same order.
I'm not sure about the next question. It has to do with a specific question about band class if they get accepted into IB. So I would just ask that participant if you want to email, maybe email me or Mrs. Lewis specifically.
Band
Again,
is
just
one of the electives. If we
yeah.
haven't been speaking to that enough, band is one of the VAPA courses they can take as an elective. So maybe that's the question. Yes,
Yeah.
we have a very, very successful band program at our school, and it's offered all 3 years. And there is also an advanced band course offered in 0 period for students that are really excelling. So I hope that kind of answered the question. But yes, email us if we didn't.
And just again to call out, our emails are very easy because hopefully you can see our names on the screen. And you just put a dot in between our first and last name and then add @sanjuan.edu. So Brent.Givens@sanjuan.edu, Lindsay.Lewis@sanjuan.edu, and Christopher.Wright@sanjuan.edu. All right, next question. So if you apply to the 7th grade and there's only 33 spots that are available, that can, if there's only 33 spots.
You're just clarifying. Yes,
Yes,
there are only
that is correct.
33 spots available in 7th grade
correct.
diplomat.
Yes, that is correct. How early are the kids able to start? Mrs. Lewis just alluded to the fact that we do have, I should say this, we currently have a 0 period band, which during the traditional on-campus live in-person teaching started at 6:45 in the morning. So that was our 0 period. Or actually maybe it was 6:55. Gosh, I can't even remember now. It seems like years ago that we were on campus.
Very early now, doesn't it?
Yes, yes. But right now in distance learning, all of the courses start at 9 a.m. 0 period for band starts at 8 a.m. So yes, it is basically it's about 50 minutes before the first period class starts.
Yeah, in our regular bell schedule, I believe we left off at what, 7:55 a.m. is when school typically starts.
Yes,
I believe
yes.
breakfast is available at about 7:35. Would be the
Yes.
earliest. After school programs, we have bridges. Seats are limited. We talked about it a little bit in our presentation. And they're open until I believe 6 p.m. And then if you're in an after school club, it depends on what academic team or club you're participating in, but nothing's going to meet 5 days a week. So if you're looking for clubs or teams to occupy every day after school, it's probably not going to happen.
And sometimes too, you have to make a hard decision because there's clubs that kind of overlap. I mean, the academic teams definitely have some. You've got Quiz Bowl and Science Bowl and Math Team and Science Olympiad, and those have some very common threads in them. And so you can't necessarily participate in all of them. And some of them are limited to just one club because of the time and the practices and the requirements. So yeah, these are where those decisions get tough for our young people who want to do everything but have to kind of find a focus. How can they prepare for the test that they're going to take for the qualification? So I would just say, Chris, you've said it a couple of times. It's very similar to the CASP, and that is the California State assessment that students have been taking. Before it was the CASP, it was the STAR testing. So again, it's a standards based aligned test. and I would just say that if you wanted to practice, you could go onto the CASP website, which is part of the CDE website. That's the California Department of Education. And there are certainly practice exams that you can take on that. And that's the best advice I can give. Do you have anything else about that, Chris?
If people ask me, I send them to corestandards.org and look for the literacy or math and look for your grade level. Go over with your child what they know, what they don't. Each child is different. You can talk with their teacher, see what they've taught and what they haven't, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. I wouldn't want your kids. I cringe at the thought of, you know, crash course studying for the entrance to Churchill. I mean, it's kind of one of those situations where organically your kids are going to be successful, or they're going to maybe have some challenges. And I do know that there's test anxiety. We're well aware of that. We know that there's some kind of gaps right now, especially. But if you want to prepare, go ahead and jump onto those practice tests that Chris just mentioned. Chris, say that website one more time.
corestandards.org.
Thank you. A comment here from a current parent. Love it. I know who this parent is, so I appreciate the comment. The 6th grade year provides a really great on-ramp to middle school. If you are on the fence about whether to come in 6th, the 6th grade program is strong, helps students feel connected to the school. So thank you so much. I second that, and Mrs. Lewis is part of a really fantastic 6th grade teaching team. They like working together, they collaborate often, and they really care for their students. That's the thing that really comes through. And I hear Mrs. Lewis teaching down the hall right now in distance learning, and there is a tremendous amount of care and passion and energy that comes out of our teachers. And I would say that goes across the grade levels, but especially for our 6th graders, and Mrs. Lewis's background as an elementary teacher, she really gets kind of what they need to integrate into a middle school environment.
Yeah, and we say this every year at our information night. I say it every year. Please, if you are on the fence, you can email me, but I cannot stress enough, it's really important to come in 6th grade if you're able to, not just mathematically, it works to your advantage to come in 6th grade with our seats available, but really just the transition. So yes, thank you for that comment.
Will there be a math placement test in the spring? So this has to do with you get an acceptance into Churchill, and we know you're coming and you know you're coming, and now we need to find out what the best fit for you in terms of a math course is. So historically, we've done an on-campus math assessment. That's another data point for us to help make a decision. At this point, I would say that, yeah, we will likely plan to have a math placement test in the spring. I won't make any promises. I've got my fingers crossed that we're going to be able to do that, because it's historically been a great piece of data for us that really kind of solidifies the other pieces of data, and again, helps us put the kids in the right course. So yes, we hope that that's going to continue.
I'm going to answer these next 2 questions together. Yeah. We work with 3.
Why don't you read them out loud though first, Chris?
Sorry?
Read them out loud first.
Oh, okay. Is November, December test schedule for all new enrollment students or only in-district students? And then the next question is, what does it mean non-enrolled district residents?
Good question.
We work with three groups, or 3 standings that we work with. One is in-district, and that is anybody who attends one of our schools. They could live in the district or they can live out of the district. It doesn't matter. If you are currently at one of our San Juan schools, as one of our 41 elementary schools or our middle schools, you would be in district. If you live within our boundaries, but you do not attend one of those schools, you're considered a district resident. That includes students at CMP. That includes students who go to the private schools, any charter school that's outside of our normal 41 schools. Those are all district resident. Homeschool. This year, however, with the homeschool, some of those are still considered in district because of the COVID. They're holding spots for certain programs if they're in the homeschool. So it'd be one or the other. And then there's the out of district. And the out of district don't live in the San Juan boundaries, and they do not attend one of the schools. So with that, a non-enrolled district resident would be what we'd call a district resident. It's you don't attend one of our schools, but you live within our boundaries. And the district residents get the same priority as our in-district students. They all test in November and December because they have the same priority. Those are the students that we enroll first. And then the out of district are the ones that are going to test in March. They do not have the same priority. We put our in-district and district residents in first, our out of district in with whatever spots are left.
All right.
All right.
The last question we have here, at least for right now, it says, are 6th and 8th graders ever in the same classes together, or are the different grade levels kept fairly separate? Concerned about socialization. I would say there would have to be a very, very unique situation to have a 6th grader and an 8th grader together in the same class.
We would have that potentially because we want 6th graders on an entry-level basis to be part of leadership. I know that that's one class, our leadership class. We want 6th grade voice on the leadership class, and I think we've had a couple 6th graders with our leadership class. Yeah.
And then that would be about it. So besides student leadership, I can't really think of any other time you would have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in a single class together.
No, when we have homeroom, as Mrs. Lewis talked about earlier, which is kind of that 17 to 20 minute-ish character development, school announcements, study skills, just a connecting point for kids at the beginning of the day. Those are all by grade level, and they're completely integrated with diplomats and ambassadors. This is what I would say to parents, because again, I'm a parent of a middle schooler. I have a 6th grader right now at middle school. I've had my 2 older have gone through. There's a lot of concern always, but what I would say is when your child is a 5th grader or a 3rd grader at the elementary school, they're with other kids that are older than them and younger than them. And oftentimes we use our older students as mentor students, and they can provide good kind of information and help and guidance for them. So, but we do understand that middle school is a period of time when there's a lot of social emotional development and maturity and things of that nature. But I look at the interaction between our different grade levels as very positive. The kids are all in the same hallways during passing period. The kids are all mixed together during lunches. We don't have a grade level specific lunch during a traditional schedule. When we're back on campus, we have 2 lunches, and those 2 lunches are completely integrated, as well as our clubs and our sports and things of that nature. So kids are going to be able to meet and interact with kids from different grade levels. But in terms of kind of providing a little bit of a cocoon for those 6th graders that are joining the middle school, that's why we have the grade level courses and the grade level team. So Mrs. Lewis is a 6th grade teacher. She teaches 6th grade English and history. Those courses are going to be just with 6th grade English and history students. But you know, some of our band classes are going to be mixed grade levels. So you would have, for instance, a beginning band, and you would see that there would be 6th graders, 7th graders, and potentially 8th graders that are in that class together because of their ability level. And you could see the same with some of our math classes as well, I suppose, but you wouldn't typically see all 3 grade levels in a math class. But in an elective class, that could be possible.
It does. There's a comment saying that leadership doesn't start until 7th grade, and most years it is just a 7th and 8th grade elective. However, in past years, we have had it as a 6th, 7th, 8th grade elective, and I'm not sure if Mr. Givens is maybe alluding to the possibility of bringing that back as a 6th grade elective.
Yes, I'm a fan of making sure that we have some voice in our leadership class from the 6th graders, and so I've spoken with our leadership teacher about opening up some limited seats for 6th graders. So it's not something that we would be able to offer, but because again, that student would oftentimes have to be in a foreign language wheel, and so if they're on track in our IB program, that would be a challenge. So again, we're trying to think outside the box and figure out maybe to kind of some of the equity conversations that we had earlier, if that's possible. But yeah, in the past we have, in the recent past we have not, but we're seeing if it's a possibility.
Okay, last question. Are in-district students and non-enrolled residents treated equally by admissions priority?
As far as priority goes, yes, they have the same priority. The only difference is that your non-enrolled residents do not have the portfolio option. The portfolio option is only for in-district current students. But as far as ranking and placement, they're going to be ranked and placed together.
All right.
Well, that is, thank you so much. So that's the, we don't have any more questions in our chat room right now. So I guess I'll put out kind of a last call if there was a burning question and we didn't get a chance to cover it or answer it, and you want to do that in this evening's chat, feel free to do that, and we'll stay on here for another minute or two. But we've been on for about an hour and 15 minutes, and we, again, just wanted to make ourselves available to answer questions. There's still the video presentation that is available if you have not watched that. That's Mrs. Lewis and I kind of narrating a general overview of our IB program. On November 4th, we have the campus tour video that's going to be available so that you can kind of walk through the campus with Mrs. Lewis and some of our former students and kind of get a feel of the lay of the land. And then also, again, the emails. Chris Wright is available. Mrs. Lewis is available. I'm available. And if we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you. And then, of course, the Churchill website, which Mrs. Lewis is sharing right now and kind of spotlighting the video and some of the information that's on our website. And then also the IB website from the Advanced and Accelerated Programs Office, which kind of explains a lot of the enrollment information, is at www.sanjuan.edu/IB. So feeling the love on the chat. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you sticking with us. And again, we hope that we answered your questions, and we are available for anything that might pop into your mind when you're eating breakfast or just having a conversation with your student. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and say goodnight. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate it. And we hope everyone stays safe. Take care. Bye-bye.